All right, let's just jump right into this because today we are talking about something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's totally 100% real science. We're going to break down why, according to the laws of physics, you have never, ever actually touched anything in your entire life. So let me just ask you that straight up. Think about it for a second. The phone in your hand, the chair you're sitting on, the clothes on your skin. Have you ever really touched any of it? This simple and pretty mind-bending answer from physics is no. True, physical contact has just never happened. I know, that sounds completely nuts, but stick with me here, because the reason why is one of the coolest and most fundamental truths about how our universe actually works. Okay, so let's get into what we can call the touch illusion. To really get why it's an illusion, we have to first talk about what we all think touch is, just based on living our lives. For us, touch is just, touch. It's simple contact. My hand is on the desk, your feet are on the floor. It feels like the most basic, most obvious thing in the world, right? But that feeling, that sense of solidity, is exactly where the illusion starts. To pull back the curtain on this illusion, we have to zoom in. I mean, way, way in. We have to get down to the level of the building blocks of literally everything, the atom. So this is the basic blueprint for everything around you and for you too. You've got this tiny little nucleus in the middle, and then you've got electrons kind of whizzing around it. But here is the absolute kicker. Atoms are almost entirely empty space. And this analogy just perfectly shows you how empty we're talking about. Picture a massive football stadium. Now, if that whole stadium was one single atom, the nucleus, the part with almost all the stuff in it, would be the size of a single grain of sand sitting on the 50-yard line. The rest of it, the entire stadium, is just empty space where a few tiny electrons are flying around. And that, of course, brings us to the big, obvious question. If you are made of atoms, which are mostly empty space, and that wall over there is made of atoms, which are also mostly empty space, then why can't you just walk straight through it? What is actually stopping you? Well, the answer isn't stuff hitting other stuff. The answer is an invisible force. It's this universal force field that honestly runs almost every single interaction in our day-to-day lives. So this slide really breaks it down. On the left, that's what we imagine is happening. Atoms are physically bumping into each other, like little billiard balls. But what's really happening is on the right. The electrons buzzing around the atoms in your hand get close to the electrons in the wall, and they powerfully push each other away. They never, ever touch. So here's how the touch process really works. As your hand gets close to an object, the negatively charged electron clouds in your atoms get super close to the electron clouds in the object's atoms. And since they have this same charge, they repel each other. They create this incredibly strong electromagnetic force that pushes them apart. That force is what you feel as a solid object. So this is the bottom line. That pushing away force is so powerful that the atoms never actually make contact. There is always a microscopic but very, very real gap between your skin and the surface of anything you think you're touching. Okay, so that leads to the next question, right? If you're not actually feeling contact, what in the world are you feeling? And this is where your brain pulls off a really clever trick. Think about all these feelings we get from the world. The hardness of a rock, the softness of a pillow, the rough texture of wood, the feeling of pressure. None of these sensations are coming from atoms actually touching. It's something else entirely. What you are actually feeling is that electromagnetic repulsion we were just talking about. That invisible force field is pushing back on the nerves in your skin. Your brain gets that signal and it translates it into a sensation that it decides to call touch. It's basically an interpretation, a story your brain creates to help you make sense of this world of invisible forces. This idea even explains pain. If you punch a wall, it hurts like crazy. But it's not because your atoms crashed into the wall's atoms. It hurts because those electromagnetic forces repelled each other so violently and so fast that the force itself was strong enough to actually damage the cells in your hand. Your nerves are just screaming about the force, not about an impact. So let's zoom back out for a second, because once you get this one idea, it completely changes how you see the world. It means we don't live in a world of solid things, but in a universe of invisible, interacting forces. The whole idea of solid is a sensory illusion. I mean, it's a super useful one. It keeps us from falling through the floor. But on a fundamental level, the solid world that we see and feel is really just a construct something our brain creates based on invisible fields of energy pushing and pulling. So think about what this means for you right this second. You're not actually touching your phone or your computer. Your body isn't touching the chair you're in. You are, in a very real sense, levitating an unbelievably tiny distance above it, held up by that perfectly balanced force field of electron repulsion. Our entire reality is just a constant dance of these invisible fields. And that really brings us to the final wild thought here. Every handshake you've had, every hug, every object you've ever picked up, it was all just the feeling of a force across an empty space. You've experienced the universe your whole life, but you've never truly touched it. Thanks for tuning in.